Hey there everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for another Strange and Bizarre Cases compilation. Every month I come across numerous shorter stories while researching that are definitely worth talking about but aren't really long enough to be their own video. Today I've got 11 of such cases, so let's check them out. Here we have dumpster diving mother sent to prison for toddler son's death. This case all started one morning in October of 2019 when a young mother named Elizabeth Case decided to spend her entire day hitting up some good old Alabama dumpsters across multiple counties looking for anything she might be able to use. Leaving at 9 a.m., she took her toddler along for the ride, leaving him in the car in an unstrapped car seat as she hit up dumpsters all the way up until 5 a.m. the next morning. All day, he sat in the sealed-up car in 97-degree heat. Elizabeth got home at about 5:40 a.m. and crashed, leaving her son alone in his car seat once again. Her son, who she named Case, died that very morning, succumbing to his injuries after having been left in the hot car for so long. Elizabeth's mother, Teresa, came over at about 1:30 p.m. Her deadbeat daughter was still fast asleep, and it took some serious banging on the door to wake her up. Teresa flew into a panic, unable to find her grandson. She had driven 30 miles that day to come out and play with them. She finally managed to wake Elizabeth up, who had forgotten where she put her son. The two tore the house apart looking for him until Elizabeth finally realized that she had forgotten to take him out of the car. When Elizabeth found her son in that condition, she didn't try to get help from the police or paramedics. Instead, she took him back into the house and put him into the shower. Teresa wasn't about to take it so lightly though, taking the boy into her car and rushing out to the highway to meet with the police and take him to the hospital as fast as they could. Unfortunately, it was far too late for anything to be done. Elizabeth was arrested for the death of her son, first for reckless murder. Later though, she was indicted on a much heavier charge of felony murder in 2022. She pled not guilty to the charges against her. Legal shenanigans proceeded up until 2023. In the meantime, Elizabeth's sister, Laura, filed a wrongful death suit against her, the Alabama Department of Human Resources, and the director and program director of the Limestone County Department of Human Resources. She said that she had reported her nephew's case to the authorities numerous times and nothing had ever been done. Her lawyer said, "These workers are paid with our tax dollars to protect children like Kaysen, and yet they did nothing. His death is heartbreaking and should never have happened. Instead of fighting in court, we asked DHR to join us and those who love Kaysen to search for the truth and find out how this happened and to prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening to another child." Unfortunately, the lawsuit was later dismissed. Elizabeth remained in police custody the whole time, with her charges being changed around, upgraded, and downgraded over a period of years. Finally, in March 2024, she pled guilty to a charge of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with credit for the 4 years she had been in police custody and 150 days for the time she spent in pretrial detention. The very definition of too little, too late. This one is, Kansas murder suspect uses wife's life insurance payout to buy a sex doll. Here's a story that is all elements crazy, tragic, and straight up weird and degenerate. So this one all started back in Halloween of 2019. This was when a man named Colby Trickle called the police to say that his wife had shot herself at their house in Hays, Kansas. The police came out to the home and, after looking around, immediately felt that Colby was a bit suspicious. They wondered if he had something to do with his wife's death based on his demeanor, among other things. Normally, a woman doesn't end their life by injuring their face. The gun that she supposedly used was also pretty large, and she wasn't too big herself. Not only that, but she was wearing nothing but underwear, which people don't typically tend to do when they know that the police will be coming over to examine them. Kristen also had appointments that day and an alarm set. It seemed that she was planning on going out and performing her day as usual. But after the coroner ruled that her death was indeed self-inflicted, there wasn't a whole lot they could do. However, they did keep investigating the case on the sly. Colby went out and cashed in 2 life insurance policies that he had taken out on his wife. Together, they amounted to a bit more than $120,000. Almost immediately after getting his hands on the money, he went out and spent $2,000 on one of those lifelike sex dolls. One detective on the case reacted by saying, There's a mourning process that I think everyone needs to go through, should go through, when a loved one dies, and to have him ordering this type of doll just months after his wife's death was concerning. Kristen's aunt, Dellen Rice, heard about the doll and was rightfully pretty disgusted. She told the media, "I was just appalled that he would use Kristen's life insurance money for a sex doll. It was like he bought a replacement of her with her money." Within 6 months, Colby had spent the entire life insurance payout, all $120,000, on the doll, video games, and music equipment. He had hopes of becoming a musician and making it big. To his credit, he did use some of the money to pay off his previous debts, so I guess you could say he's slightly financially responsible, if anything. For 2 years, the investigators kept looking into Colby as they tried to build a case against him. The cops would never get over the suspicion that Colby was the murderer here. His odd spending when it came to the life insurance money only raised suspicions that much higher. Colby agreed to talk to the investigators without a lawyer several times. He was in the Army Reserve and told the police all about his work and tours in the Middle East and Central America. However, the investigators were able to find that he had never actually been deployed overseas anywhere. This only made them doubt him even more. Finally, they were able to make a good case and charge him with Kristen's murder. He was hit with charges of both first-degree murder and interfering with law enforcement. At his trial, his mother defended him by saying that the doll he purchased was for warmth and emotional support, not for banging. Kristen's uncle responded, "We have electric blankets for that." The jury found Colby guilty. 4 years after killing his wife, he was sentenced to life in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 50 years. Now we've got 10-year-old Texas boy linked to 2022 killing. It's not often that we have child criminals on this channel, and when we do, they're usually, in their early teens or so. It's not very often that a 10-year-old confesses to murder, but here we are. In this story, a 10-year-old boy in South Texas was on his school bus, threatening to kill another child. He obviously got into trouble with his teachers, and when he was taken into the office, he admitted to something much more shocking, the fact that he had shot and killed a man 2 years ago. The school, unsure if he was even telling the truth or not, phoned the police just in case. This started a full-scale investigation. The boy admitted that he was hanging out in his grandpa's RV one day when he grabbed a pistol from the glove box of his truck. He then wandered around with it before going over to an RV owned by a man named Brandon Raspberry. While Brandon was sleeping, the boy pushed the gun up to his head and fired. He admitted to the police that he didn't know Brandon and carried out the attack for no reason. Brandon's brother is struggling to come to terms with the fact that his brother's unsolved murder was committed by a child, saying, "Finding out it was a 7-year-old that committed the murder, a senseless murder at that, it's just tragic. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Brandon was a loving person. He'd give the shirt off his back for anyone. I feel like the boy knew exactly what he was doing. Why wasn't the child being supervised more?" The investigators were able to find the murder weapon, which had since been sold to a pawn shop in the years after the murder. It seemed the boy was telling the truth. He was already in a detention facility for threatening the other kid, but now he was all set to be taken out to a San Antonio psychiatric hospital as well. Given that he shot the victim a week before he turned 8 years old, he won't be getting charged with the murder. By Texas law, a child can't be responsible for a crime until they're 10 years old. Brandon's family, in disbelief at the injustice, are fighting to have something done. The school released a statement saying that the boy will not be returning to their campus. This one be: man shot, killed by police in Tukwila Hotel believed he was meeting with 2 girls under 12 years old. In the lovely state of Washington, we have the case of a man who is not so lovely. This man was trying to meet up with some young girls online, young girls not even 12 years old. Well, little did he know he was actually talking to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. The police were conducting a sting operation at a hotel in order to capture men just like him. The 67-year-old man showed up to the hotel to meet who he thought were a 7-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl, but the police were actually lying in wait. To add to the danger, this old man came packing heat, holding a gun in his waistband. At the Doubletree Suites in Tukwila, the police got into an altercation with the man. Body cam footage that was released afterward showed that the police confronted the man to catch a predator style, only for him to pull out his gun. The police drew their guns as well, and a brief but violent gun battle then took place. Several shots were fired in rapid succession. One officer was grazed by a bullet from the old man, but the old man took much more damage than that. He died then and there at the scene. The injured officer was treated on scene with only minor injuries. Other hotel guests were shook and barricaded themselves in their rooms for a while, understandably. In the end, though, I doubt anyone will feel any major loss now that this criminal is gone. This one is: French woman found dead in Italian church was searching for ghosts in possible TikTok stunt. Here we have a strange tale from out in Rome, Italy. This is where a 22-year-old French woman was found dead in an abandoned church in the Aosta Valley, completely drained of all of her blood. It is thought that she was looking for ghosts when she passed away, but it's a pretty complicated case. She had told her family that she was planning to go ghost hunting before she left her home in her village of Lyon. The police believed that she was trying to carry out a TikTok stunt, one that was related to a ghost hunting competition in France being held on the platform. She was seen walking around with a young man before heading to the church, one described by witnesses as looking like a vampire, having dark hair and olive skin. The woman was described as looking emaciated, like a walking corpse. A local resident walking around the church found her body there. The police were called and came to investigate. They noted that the woman had no documentation on her and, for some reason, had a bag of pink marshmallows and some groceries near her body. The woman, whose name still hasn't been made public, was apparently stabbed with a camping knife and was made to bleed to death. Not only that, but she had multiple gunshot wounds, 2 to her neck and 1 to her stomach area. It's believed that, oddly enough, the gunshot wounds might have been made after she was already dead. Some of her blood had been scraped up from the floor and removed from the scene. In the end, though, there weren't any signs of any sort of struggle. Given that the police still haven't found the man she was with, people have begun to develop other theories about what had happened to her. Some believe that it might have been some sort of sacrifice or consensual murder. Others believe it was simply a prank or a TikTok stunt that went too far. The police are still searching for the man involved, believing that this case might be linked to 2 other missing person cases in the area. Right now, it seems that the local police are investigating surveillance footage of an area near the scene of the crime and have taken an interest in a certain burgundy-colored van that was seen parked near the abandoned church around that time. As of now, that's all anyone really knows. Update. So after I finished this video, more information came out about this case. The victim was identified as being Oriane Nathalie Lazen. The man she was seen with was her boyfriend, 21-year-old Egyptian-Italian Tema Sohaib. The 2 were in a relationship that the police described as anything but peaceful. Tema had actually been wanted in France since the end of March for violation of judicial control after committing violence against Oriane. He had been ordered not to approach her, but the 2 had been traveling around Europe when they were seen asking someone living in a nearby town if there were any abandoned villages where they could camp. Tema was arrested in Lyon on suspicion of murder. Police are still trying to figure out if the death was a consensual murder, some sort of sacrifice, or something else. And here we've got a doozy. Man chases police officer down the road with a chainsaw. On May 6th, it seems that a 27-year-old man in the UK got into a collision with a parked police car. While that's bad enough on its own, it's safe to say that this guy went into a bit of a rage. On this quiet residential street, the man whipped out a whole chainsaw and decided to charge toward the police. He let out a scream as he charged towards them, weapon in hand. Backup was called and nearly a dozen police officers showed up, swarming the whole neighborhood just to subdue and arrest this man. They succeeded, but only after he managed to injure 2 police officers with his weapon. Photos were taken showing his damaged Volkswagen as he was taken away in police custody. As the 2 injured officers got help from an ambulance, the other officers told the public that there was no longer any risk as Chainsaw Man was now in police custody. They said that, in the end, none of the officers were seriously injured, at least. Police remained on scene as people exited their homes and gossiped about the situation, taking pictures all the while. The madman has been charged, and he is due to appear at the Paisley Sheriff Court very soon. And this one is, man arrested at Yellowstone for allegedly kicking bison while drunk. A 40-year-old man named Clarence Yoder from Idaho Falls was out with a woman named McKenna Bass, age 37, as they drove around Yellowstone. They were pretty hammered during this drive. It seems that, at some point, Clarence got out of the car and made his way over to a bison. He then kicked the bison in its leg. The bison didn't react well and, in turn, kicked his ass. For some reason, it's somewhat of a trend for people to come out and harass wildlife in the summer. This case just happened a little bit early. Jared Beaver, an assistant professor and wildlife management specialist at Montana State University, said that it's usually June and July when people really crank up the harassment. He added that out of all the animals in Yellowstone, the bison are the animals most likely to injure visitors. Sometimes people even get gored by their horns, causing them to have to get airlifted to nearby medical centers. Clarence was lucky that he got away with relatively minor injuries. The big-headed bison, like this one, can weigh around 2,000 pounds. They also don't like when their personal space is invaded, and they aren't above resorting to violence when it happens. If you come within 15 feet of one, it may attack you. When a bison is about to attack, it will snort, wave its head around, and pretend it's about to charge. Clarence may have been too drunk to notice. He's now facing charges in the Federal Court District of Wyoming for allegedly approaching and disturbing wildlife, being under the influence of alcohol in a park area, and disorderly conduct. He suffered some injuries during the attack, not as severe as goring, luckily, and had to be sent to the hospital before he could be taken into police custody. His cohort McKenna was arrested alongside him for driving under the influence, disturbing wildlife, and failing to yield to an emergency light activation. Both of them have pleaded not guilty, and each were released on a $3,500 bond. Both of them are banned from Yellowstone for the time being. Both will be back in court over the summer, and if they are convicted, they might be hit with a $5,000 fine and possibly up to 6 months in prison. Park rangers have said that harassing animals is at an all-time high thanks to social media like TikTok and Instagram. And boy oh boy, now we have Texas man accused of putting antiques up his kilt-covered butt. Here we have the tale of a man who committed a bizarre crime that I honestly never even really considered to be a possibility. It's a crime that articles online have appropriately labeled asinine. They did the pun for me this time. Well, this 60-year-old man in Spring, Texas decided to put on his best kilt and head over to his nearest antique shop. He then began to walk around their shop for a long time, so long that shop workers felt his presence was becoming uncomfortable. Little did they know how uncomfortable it really was. On this day, our man, Mitchell C. Vest, actually hit up 2 shops, Antique Gallery of Houston and the Curiosity Shop, both on Town Drive in Spring. He walked up and down the aisles, picking up items. He would then shove these items deep into his anus, take them back out, and return them to the shelves. He repeated this numerous times with all sorts of items. This is when the police started to get calls from multiple concerned shoppers not about to purchase any of these juicy goods. The police said that their perp was, quote, observed selecting items from multiple vendors at an antique mall outlet and placing these selected items into his rectum. The male was then observed removing the items and placing them back on the shelves. Some of the items he dipped into his dumper included a bottle opener, a makeup brush, and a tobacco tent can, along with a hardware restoration tool and even more. At one shop, he damaged about $130 worth of goods. At the other, the damage total reached about $74. His booty was not clean either, with an affidavit stating, both complainants advised that they had to throw away the items that were used in the incident due to the feces on them. Both provided the video surveillance of the incidents, and both wished to pursue charges. All of his shitty shenanigans were caught on security camera footage, so the cops had plenty to work with when they came out to arrest him. They took Michael C. Vest into custody on 1 count of criminal mischief. He was later released on a $100 bond. And now we have Catholic priest stole $40,000 of church money to play Candy Crush. I feel like Catholic priests kind of come up a lot in these compilations. You would think that, based on stereotypes, the crimes would be something related to, well, diddling. Usually though, they've actually been kind of on the weirder side of things, and this is one of those stories. Out in South Coventry, Pennsylvania, a Catholic priest named Lawrence Kozak took a bunch of church donations, a whole bunch, to spend on mobile games, mainly slot machine games and Candy Crush. In total, he spent about $40,000 of the church's money to pay for his microtransaction addiction. It seems that someone within the congregation found out about this suspicious spending and reported it to the police. The police came out to investigate the situation and found numerous charges related to gaming, with the games including Wizard of Oz Slots, Candy Crush Saga, Cash Frenzy, Mario Kart Tour, and Pokemon Go, but most of the proceeds seem to go toward Candy Crush. Given that gambling is a bit frowned upon within his circle, Lawrence told the police that what he paid for wasn't gambling, it was power-ups. He had also used the church's credit card to buy some gifts for his goddaughter, like an Amazon Fire tablet and a chemistry set. A bit wholesome, but still criminal. The congregation released a response to the whole ordeal, saying, Father Lawrence Kozak was placed on administrative leave by the Archdiocese in November of 2022. His administrative leave followed a review of St. Thomas More Parish's financial activity by the Archdiocesan Office for Parish Services and Support. That review resulted in certain expenses and expenditure levels utilizing parish funds being questioned. The Archdiocese then reported the matter to law enforcement. Lawrence was arrested on April 25th and was subsequently charged with theft by unlawful taking, failing to make required disposition of funds, and accessing a device without proper authorization. He is still on administrative leave. Now he has all the time for gaming that he could ever want. He could pick some better games, though. Here's a weird one. Belgian man whose body produces alcohol cleared of drunk driving. Here we have a case that was almost criminal, but actually it's medical. A man in Belgium was pulled over for his driving one day. After having been given a breathalyzer, he was arrested on charges of drunk driving. After all, there was alcohol in his blood. Little did they know, though, the case was much more complicated than they could have predicted. The man told the police that he had what is called auto-brewery system, ABS, an extremely rare condition that causes the body to produce alcohol on its own due to having high levels of ethanol in their blood. The man's lawyer has stated that only about 20 people in the whole world have actually been diagnosed with this condition. The rare condition was first discovered in Japan in the 1970s and is caused by having an unusually large amount of yeast in the stomach. To add to the irony, this man also works at a brewery. The police had just assumed that he had partaken in a few drinks. However, it was found that despite him having a high blood alcohol level, he actually wasn't intoxicated. He just has weird blood. He was acquitted on all of his charges. He was cleared of drunk driving. A clinical biologist stated, "People with ABS produce the same type of alcohol as found in alcoholic drinks, but that they generally felt less of its effects." Despite not feeling as if they are intoxicated, it is possible with people with ABS to suffer the negative effects of drunkenness from time to time, such as slurred speech, stumbling, dizziness, and nausea. Similar cases to this have happened in other areas, such as a case in New York in 2015. Researchers still haven't found out how to stop the condition, but they do feel that it tends to appear after certain infections in the gut. And here we've got one of those good old bonus ones. Monsters in toddler's bedroom, actually massive beehive. Here we have one of those nice bonus stories that isn't necessarily a crime, and this time it isn't even a lawsuit. It's more of just a dark happening that I'm sure will send shivers up some spines out there somewhere. A 3-year-old girl in North Carolina had recently watched Monsters, Inc. and came to the conclusion that she, too, had monsters in her closet. She wasn't basing this off of pure paranoia, though. She had been hearing some noises coming from that direction for a while now. Her parents felt that she was simply influenced by the movie, though, and did the usual parental tactic of trying to console her and by spraying some water around the room, saying that it was anti-monster spray. This was all wholesome, well and good, until the family started to find some bees in their home. More than just a few bees that might have flown in while the door was open. It was a lot. So the mother, Ashley Clast, asked a beekeeper to come check the house out. He inspected the home using a thermal camera to find a massive floor-to-ceiling beehive hidden in the daughter's wall in an empty space. There were more than 50,000 bees and 100 pounds of hive behind the wall that had to be removed. Even still, they can't get rid of all the bees. They've been vacuumed out of the walls 3 times now, and that room has to be sealed off from the rest of the home. Now the whole house is sticky and dead bees are all over the place. Their insurance also won't cover any of this. In the end, it's going to cost them nearly $20,000 to fix. The daughter, for now, has to sleep in a different room that isn't full to the brim with bees. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and hey, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you're interested, I've recently started up a podcast with 4 of my friends. If you like this channel, I think you'll find that interesting as well. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media, because if anything were to ever happen to this channel, that would probably be the only way you'd ever hear about it. I also really appreciate when people follow me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are up as well, where you can get the same benefits. Once again, this has been your host Kyle, thank you, and good night.